The night air in King's Landing was unusually still. Inside the Tower of the Hand, Eddard Stark stood near the balcony, watching the lights of the Red Keep flicker against the black sky. His heart was heavy. Robert Baratheon, his old friend and king, lay dying, and chaos was creeping closer with every breath. But something inside Ned had changed. He had played the honorable lord long enough. Now, with the game turning deadly, he realized that honor alone wouldn't protect his daughters or the realm. He turned back inside and looked at the sealed letter he had just written, the king's true will, naming him protector of the realm, until Stannis Baratheon arrived. But Ned knew well enough now that Littlefinger had been right about one thing. Paper and ink wouldn't stop a sword. Seer Barristan had warned him. Varys had hinted at darker plots, and Littlefinger had grinned, like a fox offering help just before a storm. Yet it was Janos Slynt, commander of the City Watch, who stood before Ned now, arms crossed and waiting. "You want the gold cloaks to stand behind you," Janos said plainly. "You want us to choose your side when the boy king tries to take the throne." Ned didn't blink. "I want you to uphold the law. Robert's true heir is Stannis, not Joffrey. When the time comes, I need the Watch to maintain peace and prevent bloodshed." Slynt chuckled, dark and low. "That's noble talk, Lord Stark, but peace costs gold. Loyalty costs more." Ned reached into a chest beside his desk and pulled out a heavy pouch of gold dragons. He set it on the table. "You'll have this now, and more once Stannis is crowned. Do your duty, and I'll see to it that you're rewarded properly." Slynt eyed the pouch, then nodded. "You've got yourself the Watch, my lord. Just say the word." The next morning, Ned moved quickly. He had his men spread quiet word through the city. The king was dying, and Lord Stark, as protector, would ensure peace. At the same time, he sent sealed letters to Dragonstone, urging Stannis to come swiftly and stake his claim. The small council met that afternoon, and Ned presented Robert's will. Cersei tried to protest, but Ned stood firm. "Robert's will is clear. Until his heir is confirmed, I am protector of the realm." Cersei's eyes glittered with fury. "You forget yourself. The king's heir sits right there," she said, motioning to Joffrey, who wore a golden smile that made Ned sick. "Joffrey is not Robert's son," Ned said sharply. "You know it. The realm will know it. And I will not allow this charade to end in war." At that moment, gold cloaks burst into the chamber. They stood behind Ned, swords drawn, surrounding the queen and her children. The lords of the court gasped, and Seer Barristan stood, uncertain. "By order of the Hand of the King," Janos Slynt announced, "Her Grace, Cersei Lannister, and her children are to be taken into custody, pending investigation into their ... royal lineage." Joffrey's voice cracked in fear. "You can't do this. I'm the king." Guards, but no guards came. The gold cloaks held their positions, loyal to Slynt's gold and Stark's justice. Cersei lunged at Ned, her voice a hiss. "You think you're saving the kingdom, but all you've done is start a war." Ned looked at her with steel in his eyes. "Better a war now than a kingdom ruled by a lie." The throne room was locked down. Cersei and her children were escorted under heavy guard to the Tower of the Hand, held as political prisoners. Word spread like wildfire through King's Landing. Ned Stark had seized control in the name of the dying king's wishes. Some cheered him as a man of principle finally taking charge. Others whispered of northern ambition and coups. But one thing was clear. Ned Stark had made his move, and the game had changed. The wind carried the scent of rain over King's Landing as whispers turned into rumors, and rumors into panic. Nobles locked their doors. Small folk glanced nervously at gold cloaks, patrolling the streets in tighter formations. The Red Keep had become a fortress, not just a palace, and at its heart was Eddard Stark, a man who had crossed the line he'd never thought he would. Sansa hadn't stopped crying since her mother was sent to the Tower of the Hand. She didn't understand. "He's the king, father," she had sobbed. "You can't treat him like a criminal." But Ned couldn't bring himself to lie anymore. The truth weighed too heavily. "Joffrey is not Robert's son, sweetling," he had said gently, "and the truth will protect the realm even if it hurts now." Arya, in contrast, had grinned. "Good," she had said. He was a little monster anyway. Ned had sent his daughters into hiding, not trusting anyone, not even the walls of the Red Keep. He placed Arya under Syrio Forel's watch and had Varys smuggle Sansa away quietly to a safe house in the city. Littlefinger had been silent since the coup, his smirk nowhere to be seen. He had vanished for now, and that worried Ned more than Cersei's fury. In the dungeons, Cersei was not broken. She was calm, too calm. "You think you've won," she told Ned when he visited her. "You think Stannis will come here and be accepted. The people will not love him. They will not follow a man they do not know, and they will never forget what you did to their queen." "I did what the law demanded," Ned said. "No," she replied coolly. "You did what you thought was right. That's not the same." Meanwhile, chaos brewed outside the walls of the capital. Jaime Lannister had vanished from the city the moment he heard what had happened. Some said he fled to Casterly Rock. Others whispered he was amassing a force. Tywin Lannister was silent too. But silence from the Lion was never a good sign. Ned received word that Stannis had received his raven. No reply came, but ravens from the Vale and the Riverlands began to arrive. Some offered cautious support. Others demanded to know what had truly happened. The realm stood at a crossroads, and Ned Stark sat in the center of the storm. With too few friends and too many enemies, Seer Barristan remained loyal to Ned for now. "You've done what I would never have dared," the old knight said. "But beware, Lord Stark. This city has a hunger for blood. It forgets honor quickly." Then came the riots. The market square erupted. First loyalists to Joffrey clashed with men paid by Varys to spread whispers of Stannis' legitimacy. The Goldcloaks tried to intervene, but struggled to hold back the violence. Bodies lined the gutters before midday. Ned watched from the walls, his face grim. "This won't hold," Seer Renly warned him. "You've built a wall of order on sand. You need a true king in place before someone else makes their own." "Stannis is on his way," Ned replied, "and until then, I will keep the peace." But even he wasn't sure he believed that anymore. Cersei had sent a raven before her arrest, to whom Ned didn't know. But whatever it said, it had been enough to stir the Westerlands. A raven came from Riverrun next. Catelyn's brother, Edmure, reported that Lannister forces were moving. Tywin was gathering troops near the Trident. And worse, Jaime had been spotted near Harrenhal with 1,000 men at his back. Ned held council that night with Seer Barristan, Renly Varys, and a reluctant Maester Pycelle. The booth mood was grim. "We must prepare for war," Ned said. "And we must pray that Stannis gets here before Tywin does." But prayers had little power in the Game of Thrones. Steel and gold ruled now, and somewhere far away, Robb Stark was gathering his own army. 3 days after the riots in King's Landing, another raven came bearing dire news. Tywin Lannister's host had crossed the Golden Tooth, and Jaime Lannister was now leading a separate army down the King's Road. The Riverlands were burning, and Tully Bannermen were falling back toward River Run. Ned held the letter in trembling hands. The weight of his decision, his sudden seizure of power, his attempt to stop a lie from ruling the realm, was now setting the entire country on fire. Cersei had been right in her dungeon cell. His truth had become a weapon, and now it cut through the land. Varys appeared in his chambers that evening, quiet as a shadow, robes rustling like whispers. "War is here, my lord," he said, "and it will not wait for Stannis to march." "I did not want this," Ned said wearily. "I wanted justice, peace." Varys tilted his head. "And yet here we are with lions tearing through the Riverlands, and wolves gathering in the north. What of my wife? What of Robb?" Ned asked. Varys sighed. "Lady Stark has taken Tyrion Lannister prisoner at the Eyrie. Lord Robb now calls the Northern Banners to war. A boy marches to defend your name." Ned closed his eyes. "I should have sent them home." "You sent them into a world you could not control," Varys said softly. "None of us can." The next morning, Ned summoned Seer Barristan and Renly. To the war room, maps were unrolled, markers placed on the table. Renly was agitated, pacing. "You need to crown someone, Ned," he insisted. "Stannis won't win the people. He's cold, harsh, unloved. You've held this city together for a week, but every day you delay, you lose power." "I will not crown Renly," Ned said firmly. "He has no claim. I'm here, and I have men," Renly shot back. "You think the small folk will kneel for a man they've never seen, a man who won't even write you back?" Ned turned to Seer Barristan, hoping for some calm. "Lord Stark is right," Seer Barristan said. "The law names Stannis. We are not kings." Renly cursed and stormed out. That same night, he left the capital with Seer Loras Tyrell and a company of knights, heading south to Highgarden. He would not sit idle while the realm crumbled around him. Now Ned had fewer allies, and the city watch, once firmly under his command, began to stir. Janos Slynt demanded more gold. The gold cloaks were restless. Whispers reached Ned's earsmen, speaking of loyalty to the richest bidder, not the just ruler. Ned realized too late, power gained through bribes was a crumbling sword. By the end of the week, Cersei was moved to a stronger cell, deeper in the dungeons. Her daughter Myrcella wept every night. Tommen barely spoke. Joffrey still tried to command the guards, screaming at them to kneel, to obey, but they no longer listened. And then came the letter from Dragonstone. Stannis had declared himself king of Westeros. He named Cersei's children as bastards born of incest. He named Ned Stark as his Lord Protector, and he demanded fealty from all the lords of Westeros. But he made no promise of peace. He would come with fire and sword. Ned handed the letter to Seer Barristan. "He's declared war." Barristan looked up. "Then we must prepare to choose sides." In the dead of night, Sansa snuck back into the Red Keep to plead with her father. "Please, father," she cried, "let Joffrey go. Send them away. You don't have to keep them here like prisoners. He'll forgive you. He still loves me." Ned knelt beside her, brushing hair from her tear-stained face. "My sweet girl, if I let him go, he'll have my head before sunrise. He doesn't love you. He only wants the crown." "But he's not like that," Sansa sobbed. "He's just angry. You're the one who took everything from him." Ned didn't answer. Her words struck deep, not because they were right, but because part of him feared she believed them. The realm was slipping away from him. Every move he made to stop war only seemed to bring it faster, and outside the gates of King's Landing, war drums began to echo. The thunder of hooves pounded. Along the King's Road, smoke from burning villages curled into the sky like warning beacons. Jaime Lannister was moving fast, too fast. Word had reached the capital that the Kingslayer had taken Harrenhal without resistance. His forces now pushed toward the Crown Lands, and Tywin's main host followed close behind. War had truly come, and Ned Stark stood at the center of a fragile kingdom about to break apart. In the Red Keep, tension grew unbearable. Ned's war council met daily, but solutions were few. Seer Barristan was loyal but cautious. Varys offered riddles instead of plans. Pycelle was little more than a Lannister mouthpiece, and Janos Slynt's loyalty felt increasingly bought, not earned. Even among the Goldcloaks, rumors, gruesome, wanted to restore Joffrey. Others just wanted to be on the winning side. Ned sent another raven to Stannis. Still, there was no reply. The man had named himself king, but left the capital to rot in uncertainty. Arya returned one night, slipping past the guards with ease. She had dirt on her face, a sword at her hip, and eyes that had seen too much. "There are whispers," she told her father, her voice low. "Some say the Goldcloaks are going to switch sides. Some say the Lannisters have a spy in the tower." Ned sat heavily. "You shouldn't be here. I can take care of myself." He looked at her, his little girl, who no longer spoke like a child. "You shouldn't have to." That night, Ned called for Slynt. They spoke behind closed doors. But the air between them had changed. "I need your men to remain loyal," Ned said. "War is coming. I must know who I can trust." Slynt smirked. "Trust, my lord. Trust is expensive in times like these." "I've already paid," Ned said. "Others might pay more." The words hung in the air like poison. By dawn, Ned had doubled the guards outside Cersei's cell and quietly moved the children to separate rooms, guarded by men from the north. He began to fear betrayal from within more than the armies outside. Then came the raven from the Valalisa. Arryn would not support Stannis. She would not support Ned. She would not send men. She would not be involved at all. The veil stays neutral. The letter read ... It was a knife to the gut. Without the veil, without the reach, without certain loyalty from the Riverlands, Ned was isolated. His only hope lay in the north, but the north was marching. Robb had crossed the neck. His bannermen rode with him, a young wolf in command of a hardened pack. Ned smiled briefly at the thought of his son leading men into battle, but it faded quickly. He had hoped to protect Robb from this. Now he had made him a target in the dungeons. Cersei watched with eyes full of contempt. "You are unraveling," she said as Ned entered. "Your honor binds you in chains, and your mercy will kill you." "I should have sent you to the wall," Ned muttered. She laughed and waste a Lannister on the snow. "No, you should have killed me. That's what your father would have done. That's what mine would do." Ned said nothing. She leaned closer to the bars, voice low. "Soon you'll realize something, Stark. You've won nothing. You have no king, no allies, no future. And when the gates open, the wolves and lions will tear this city apart." He stared at her, wondering, not for the first time, if mercy had been a mistake. Later that night, Varys arrived with fresh intelligence. "Littlefinger has left the city," he said. "He met with men in the docks." Gold changed hands, and the city watch may no longer be yours. Ned's heart sank. You must act, Varys said. Either flee with your daughters, or take the throne now, before it's too late. But the next morning it already was. Janos Slynt did not report to duty. The gold cloaks were seen marching toward the throne room, and at sunrise, the gates of the city opened, welcoming guests Ned had not invited. The clang of boots echoed through the halls of the Red Keep like a war drum. Ned woke to the scent of steel in the air and the uneasy silence that always came before bloodshed. Seer Barristan was already at his door when he rose, fully armored, sword at his side, face tight. The gold cloaks are no longer under your command, he said grimly. Janos Slynt has turned. Ned nodded. He had known this would come. He had just hoped it wouldn't come so soon. Where are my daughters? He asked. Arya is with Syrio, Barristan replied. But Sansa ... She never returned from the Sept last night. A cold chill ran through Ned's chest. We must find her, but there was no time. The gold cloaks were moving fast, and the gates of the Red Keep had opened to a fresh column of Lannister soldiers' Siamese vanguard. Having ridden ahead of Tywin's host under cover of night, how had they gotten in so easily? Ned didn't have to guess long. Littlefinger appeared in the throne room, dressed like a crowfat with secrets. He bowed mockingly as Ned entered. You should have listened to me, Lord Stark, he said. You had the watch, you had the will, but you couldn't do what needed to be done. You sold the city to the Lannisters, Ned said, fists clenched. I sold nothing, Littlefinger replied smoothly. I merely corrected a mistake. Gold cloaks swarmed in, surrounding Ned and Barristan. The men from the north who had remained loyal to him were cut down in the corridors, some without even raising a sword. Others betrayed him the moment coin changed hands. Cersei stood on the steps of the Iron Throne now, no longer a prisoner, but a queen restored. Joffrey entered the hall, smug and radiant in crimson and gold. He pointed at Ned, hatred burning in his eyes. Arrest him. Barristan moved first. His sword flashed, cutting down to gold cloaks before he was tackled by 5 more. Ned tried to reach him, to fight, but a mailed fist struck the back of his head and everything turned black. When he awoke, he was in the same cell Cersei had occupied days earlier. His head throbbed. His wrists were bound. The fall had come hard and fast. Varys visited him that night, moving through the shadows like a ghost. They're planning a show, he whispered. A trial, a public confession. Cersei wants your head. Joffrey wants more. And what do you want? Ned asked bitterly. I want peace, Varys said. And the only way to get it now is to give them what they want. Ned turned his face to the wall. He had chosen to play the game and lost, but even in the darkness, his thoughts were not only of failure, they were of Arya, who was still out there, free and clever, of Sansa, whose tears he feared were being used to manipulate her, of Robb, marching south into a war that had begun with his father's mistake. They had trusted him to protect them. He had trusted honor to be enough. The next day, they dragged him to the throne room. His hair was matted with blood. His leg shook from the pain. Joffrey sat on the Iron Throne like a boy wearing a crown far too big. Cersei stood behind him, smiling faintly. The court was packed. Lords and ladies whispered. Sansa stood near the dais, red-eyed and trembling. She looked at her father with pleading in her gaze. Cersei stepped forward. Lord Eddard Stark has confessed to treason, she announced. But in the name of mercy and peace, Our good king has agreed to spare his life if he bends the knee and swears fealty." Ned looked at Joffrey, then at Sansa, then at the court. The game had taken everything from him, but he could still protect them. He stepped forward and dropped to one knee. "I confess," he said, "I betrayed the king. I plotted to seat his uncle on the throne. I beg forgiveness." Gasps echoed through the court. Cersei looked victorious, but Joffrey smiled too wide. "Take his head anyway." The boy king said. Sansa screamed. Chaos erupted, and as Ned Stark was dragged to the block, he realized he had tried to play the game with honor, and the game had no place for it. The moment was slow and sharp, as if time itself had turned to ice. Ned Stark knelt before the crowd, the morning sun glaring down on the courtyard. The wind carried the faint sound of Sansa's scream as Seer Ilinpain raised the sword. Ned kept his eyes open, not for the sake of courage, but because he wanted the last thing he saw to be the sky open, endless, northern. The blade fell, and with it, the fragile peace of the realm shattered. The crowd shrieked in disbelief, shouted something perhaps in protest, perhaps in fear of what her son had just done. But Joffrey sat back with a smile that twisted his boyish face into something monstrous. He had done it not to keep power, but to show he was power. Blood pooled at the base of the steps. The king's justice had been served, but it was no justice. It was the beginning of war. Varys vanished that very night. The spider knew the realms. Heart beat better than any maester he knew when to flee. Seer Barristan was stripped of his white cloak and sent away in disgrace. Sansa was taken to her chambers, a hostage with a broken heart, used now as a pawn to keep the north from rising too quickly. But Arya had escaped, disguised as a boy. She had witnessed the execution from the crowd. Her sword hand clenched the hilt of needles so hard her knuckles went white. She didn't cry, she didn't scream. She ran, disappeared into the streets of King's Landing with the help of Yoren, a brother of the Night's Watch. Her father's final lesson burned in her heart: trust no one. Remember the names. Far to the north, Robb Stark received the news around a fire in the middle of camp. He didn't speak at first, didn't even blink. Then he stood, turned to his bannermen, and said only 4 words: "We march on Harrenhal." The northern host moved with fury, crossing rivers and burning Lannister outposts as they went. The river lords joined him one by one. The Tullys raised their banners. Even Walder Frey, slimy as ever, opened his gates for a price. And at the airy Catelyn Stark crumpled to her knees when she read the letter confirming her husband's execution. Her face aged 10 years in a night. Tyrion Lannister, still her prisoner, didn't speak when she came to his cell. He just nodded solemnly. "You have your war," she said. "May your family choke on it." Back in King's Landing, the Red Keep became a lion's den. The court no longer whispered. They roared with threats and ambition. Cersei tried to rein Joffrey in, but the boy now knew power. He had tasted it. Every noble who questioned him was made to kneel. Every advisor was replaced by someone hungrier for favor. But fear is not loyalty. Whispers grew of Stannis Baratheon preparing his fleet at Dragonstone. Melisandre's shadow crept into Westeros with every sermon she whispered to her king. The fires would come, storms would rise. In the Reach, Renly declared himself king, not out of duty but spite. He would not bend the knee to a brother who had no friends. The Tyrells, eager for influence, backed him with gold and steel. 3 kings now claimed the realm, but only one throne remained, and Ned Stark, the man who tried to stop the storm, now lay buried in a shallow grave outside King's Landing, his name written in both love and fury across the 7 kingdoms. To some, he was a traitor; to others, a martyr; to all, he was the man who tried to tell the truth in a world built on lies. But the truth, like him, had been beheaded, and the game of Thrones raged on.